That was way different than I thought it was going to be.
Oh!
But okay.
I thought it was interesting. I enjoyed that as a watcher.
Was I owned?
I don't think you were owned. I don't think anybody was owned. I think it was two people that are highly opinionated hashing it out. And I think I personally like when people do that.
Yeah.
I don't get turned off by the combativeness.
Right.
Maybe that's the half Jewish part of me.
But the truthfully is like, again, on the larger points, we agree. That's why I take cross with this issue of being like, he's a genocide supporter, he's a fucking baby killer, and all this insane. He goes, Sam, you never heard of hyperbole? Yeah, I've heard of hyperbole. It's fuck. You're
the king of hyperbole.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is my downfall that I have too much faith or I have too much optimism in the Israeli citizenry? Maybe. I guess that's where we differ. That seemed to be where we are differing the most. I don't know.
I think you're right to identify that as yeah. And I mean, Sam is older, and he's in his 50s or something, and so maybe he's just more jaded.
Yeah, he definitely is more jaded. There's no question about that, and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so.
But yeah, I enjoyed watching that.
I will say, as a Jewish person, the contentious point in the argument of the clip of Hassan, it kind of shocked me, to be honest.
I was a little, to be honest, and as much as I love Sam, he was being very obtuse, in my opinion, when trying to talk about that clip to avoid criticizing Hassan, which is fine. I understand he doesn't want to get into that game, right, of being on record, being like, oh yeah, Hassan shouldn't have said that or whatever, right? But ultimately, obviously, I greatly disagree with him. And I think it's funny how he talks about how dangerous it is for me to call out anti-Semitism or how ridiculous it is for me to weaponize it like that. It's like when at the same time...
It's a weird thing because you don't really want to I understand the impulse to just want to have a conversation with Sam and keep it with the here and now of, your beliefs and everything. But, the degree to which the harassment that you and Hila have experienced over the last couple of years, it is part of the story. And
yeah, it's true.
I don't know. It's tricky because I get the impulse to not want to get into it, but that is a component of all of this.
And unfortunately, whatever Sam's been peppered with before the debate, I've seen is his co-hosts telling him that I'm obsessed with Hassan, that I'm having a mental health break, that I'm a genocidal maniac, all this kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, without having any of the backstory, that's the flavor he's coming in with. But ultimately, I don't want to speak ill of Sam, right? Yeah, I appreciate him coming and having an honest conversation with me. I was also disappointed by his response to that specific line of questioning, Zach. I share that with you. And I think the way that he was hand-waving away anti-Semitism as it doesn't matter that people are discriminating against Jewish people in America because of what's happening in Gaza. And it's first of all, two different issues, kind of. Whatever's happening in Gaza is one thing, and whatever rise into anti-Semitism we're seeing in America is a whole different fucking thing with its own set of problems. And believe it or not, they're both bad. To the same extent? Obviously not, right? Obviously one has an immediate horrible effect in Gaza right now. And the threat of anti-Semitism is an amorphous, nebulous thing that's hard to measure and hard to say. And Jews, our whole life in America, people call it the golden age of Judaism, is this time, the past 50, 60, 70 years in America for Jewish people. It's hard to tell, right? You go, oh, what is anti-Semitism? What isn't? And when you're allies with people that, in my opinion, are spreading dangerous ideas like Hassan is, I think Sam, who grew up in I think he sees too much good in Hassan, and I see too much good in the Israeli population. And hey, who's to say who's right? I'm right. There's this talking point that I've seen percolating on the left, which is that, to put it kind of, to summarize it crassly, that Israelis are evil. basically. I mean, to put it crassly, right? Like, that's kind of what he's saying, is that, like, the majority of Israelis just want civilians to die. I mean, that's kind of what he said, and he didn't even deny it. I think that's insane. I think that's insane. And especially the context of this clip being 2 days after October 7th, I think it was, the sentiment was a lot different before and after and during and now. The sentiment in Israel's changed a lot. So when I said that, I think it was more accurate. I think it's still accurate, but obviously there is a huge problem in Israel of people being, you know, complicit and comfortable with what the military is doing.
Right, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and I don't want to represent myself as an expert on any of this at all. So if
opinion, Dan.
No, it's definitely not. Just from what I recall reading, is that prior to October 7th, support for giving the Palestinians a state in Israel was at basically an all-time high, and that has cratered since October 7th, which is the great tragedy. I mean, one of the great tragedies of this whole situation, and kind of dark irony of it is it now feels like we are further than ever from some sort of peaceful solution to all this. So,
and then the thing that we didn't discuss is that most of the peaceniks.
Let me real-time fact check myself on that, because I mean that's a big claim.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I'm right, but I seem to remember seeing polls that, you know, generally over the course of the last 10 years or so, support for.
I'm speaking like not just from stats, which I have looked up and seen polls and stuff, but like empirically. I lived there in Tel Aviv for 5 years, and I know what the people are like there, right? And obviously, it's a progressive city.
That's likely one of the more progressive pockets.
It is.
In the country.
It's like Los Angeles or New York is. You know, it's a progressive city, right? So, obviously, they'll be more inclined to want peace. But ultimately, what happened on October 7th that we didn't talk about is that a ton of the peace activists, like most of them, lived on the southern border specifically so they could help people in Gaza. They would drive people across the border to the hospital. They would help people get to and from work. They were advocating, they were doing what they could as individuals to help facilitate peace. And many of them, you hear their stories time and time again, were just murdered, slaughtered by Hamas. And I think that's part of what really jaded the Israeli public too, is like, look what happens when you want to support peace. You know, obviously that's not, I don't think, the right conclusion, but that was their conclusion. It's like all the people that wanted peace were murdered by Hamas.
By the way, and this is why I prefaced what I was saying was I'm not an expert. Finding polling, I was wrong saying that support for a two-state solution was at a high. Looks like it kind of plateaued around 55% throughout the 2010s, but it was at a high in 2010 of 71% of Israelis supported a two-state solution. It looks like that number is now in like the 20s.
2010, that's interesting. That's about
15 years
when
ago.
I was living there.
Is it? Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't remember when you moved there?
Not really. That was 15 years ago, so I would have been crunched. Yeah, I would have been living there around then.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the vibes were at when I was there, you know.
Well, it's unfortunate that it's dropped from that high.
So maybe I'm wrong because I haven't lived there, obviously, since then.
It's a vibe right now.
But
it's a vibe.
I definitely acknowledge what's happening amongst the Israeli public isn't good, and that, you know what I mean? That's what it is. Well, guys, listen. It's been quite the ride, hasn't it, folks? We'll see what the post-mortem is on that Sam Seder convo.
I'm sure there'll be lots of hot takes, but again, I mean, I enjoyed it.
And that's all. I do the show for you.
Thank you.